Welcome back to This to Digital, where we talk about video games and the classics that inspire them. I'm your host, Brett Clark.
And I'm Matt Keaton. And this week, folks, we're talking about episode 2 of Life is Strange called Out of Time.
Awesome. And we'll read your comments and your concerns all right here on This to Digital. Matt, so Life is Strange Part 2, you finally got to play episode 2.
Yes, sir. It was a
Yeah.
blast.
Yeah, and as far as like, did it live up to the hype? Did it like meet expectations, or were you like kind of disappointed with another cliffhanger? What was your experience walking away from the end of the episode?
Ooh, baby. I think that's going to take the next 45 minutes to an hour to explain. And I don't want to run away with it here. But yeah, I think it lived up to the hype. I think it did a really good job bridging the gap for the story and continuing on and making it exciting and exhilarating. It honestly hit right in the feels a few times, and I wasn't expecting that. That was a really, really deep, really emotional episode for part 2 for sure.
One of the things that for me that I really liked about episode 2 was they did this really well in episode 1 was in Life is Strange episode 1, the way that they show the opening like title sequence is Max walks out of the classroom, you see the hallway, and it's just the way that it's shot like cinematography wise, it's a really good use of that open area. And same thing with Life is Strange 2. You walk into the shower as Max, steam's happening from the hot shower, and they just sneak the title in. Like it does a really good job of like being artistic, uh, without being like, I want to say like Avatar, where Avatar like I don't understand any of it movie wise, but it just looks really good. Like Life is Strange is kind of the best of both worlds. It looks really good, but like it's for a reason. It's
Yeah,
still as part of the story. Whereas Avatar, it's just like 4K, like it was.
yeah.
I mean, not to get off topic here, but they're releasing a game for Avatar, and the movie's like not. It's like not even relevant anymore. So it's like,
Yeah, I know. That was kind of an odd choice. I saw that in the news. Yeah.
yeah, that's the
I
only
don't know
reason
why
why.
they would wait that long, but I mean, maybe it took that long to develop. Who knows?
Who knows? But this is Life is Strange. But in that comparison, you've got something that's a beautiful masterpiece,
Mm-hmm.
and now is getting a game where Life is Strange is a video game that is inspired a lot by artistic and creativity. Art and creativity, and they implement it so well into their cutscenes. And like you had touched in the previous episode, they do a very good job of the world, creating this really nice world. And I think they continued a very good job of continuing that feeling into the second episode and so on and so forth. But especially with that opening segment, because you're coming off of the because you played the first one. At the very end, you were talking about how you see all the people and it starts snowing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end of that episode, Max and Chloe are talking about how like Max is about to explain everything to Chloe and tell her about all the things she's seen, and they're gonna start working to like fixing the tornado that's coming towards Arcadia Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you how do you transition into the next episode is very important because you got off this adrenaline hit cliffhanger, and you got to somehow settle it back to reality. And I think they did a really good job with that segment. Is it's the next day, you got to wake up, and it's a slow transition, and that allows them to sneak in a slow title crawl, and it works really well. As far as the episode, what else happened right after that?
For me, so the anticipation was high, and they had the opportunity to drop the ball big time, but however, they didn't, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is that they had the opportunity to overload you with the gameplay mechanic of rewinding and it being a main focal point, when it turns out that the main focal point was actually the story and the continuating story, but also giving you some backstory on your main character, Chloe, and giving you the opportunity to give you a backstory on some of the stuff that happened with Nathan Prescott and Kate at the Vortex Club party. That's this whole situation is basically revolving around. Sort of, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a sort of a side story, but yet it's also part of the main story
Mm-hmm.
this time around. And so, from the opening cutscene when you're like laying in bed and you're just kind of taking it all in. The game's soundtrack, by the way, is phenomenal. Absolutely, it's not only artistic, but it's just very much sets the tone and the setting and the environment really well, in my opinion. And so you start off and you're just basically just kind of like laying in bed, checking things out, and then you're back in your dorm room again. And then you kind of get a text message, hey, Chloe wants to hang out, wants to go out to breakfast with you. And I was thinking, okay, there's going to be something major that happens. And actually, it's by the time you go through and talk to a few characters and you're on your way to that diner, it's really interesting the stuff that happens. And even though I took quite a bit of time, I want to say like 30 minutes talking to people as I'm going to the bus, um, there's this point where it's like, I thought something bad was going to happen. You get there before her and you kind of scope out everything. I really like the interactivity in the game this time around as well. Just being able to look at some things that you had in the previous episode, but have new dialogue on them,
Mhm.
and have the diner itself having patrons in the diner, a cop, a trucker, a couple of guys from school, and your Chloe's mom in there, and as Max, you just kind of taking it all in, and it's really good backstory on Chloe and her stepfather and the relationship that the three of them have together, and just the overarching tone that you remember from the end of the first game, that something's gonna happen. Sorry, the end of the first episode, something bad's gonna happen, and so it kind of leaves you like, ooh, you hear a siren go, oh, is that mean something's gonna happen? And it's
Mhm.
actually just a little small, happenstance. It's nothing spectacular, but the character building and the backstory in this one really got to me and really made me really enjoy it. The rewind mechanics just being used this time around for the simple fact of trying to prove to your best friend that you do have the ability to rewind time,
Mhm.
and to be able to kind of like be one with the environment, so to speak. And so it's really really good story, really well done, and the gameplay is really basic, I want to say. Like, they really kind of took a notch back, if you will, and really just made it more about the story and how you get there, the conversations that you have, the ability to back up and maybe change the dialogue, or back up and manipulate the environment, so you can manipulate the teacher even and help your friend complete his science experiment correctly. And things like that, just being able to do the little things in the environment to kind of push the story along. And man, it was really well done, and I'm very thankful that I got the opportunity to play it, and I'm so excited for where it goes from here. I really am.
Mhm. Yeah, and you said like there's the anticipation of something bad's gonna happen or something's gonna happen to the main cast, but in this episode they did a really good job, I think, of expanding on side characters, like Kate, for instance. Kate, who we
Hmm.
mentioned in the first game, was getting harassed by Chloe's stepdad, for some reason, and we don't quite know why. Well, in the beginning of the episode, she's in the shower, and Victoria approaches her and is talking about this video of Kate from the Vortex Club, where apparently she was making out with some guys. Now, uh, it's later revealed that Kate's family is really religious, and they're very upset with her about this video that surfaced. I believe her dad's a pastor or something like that. But all of her
Hmm.
brothers and sisters and her huge family are all very upset with her, and they think like that she's kind of, you know, dishonored the family, and she's very religious herself. So she looks as if she's sinned, um, and doesn't really know who to blame. But she doesn't really blame anybody because she doesn't really know what happened. She just was really, you know, she's in a low moment at this point, and it's something where you as, you know, Max have to look at it from the outside and try your best to evaluate the situation, try to help the best you can, but you really can't necessarily at that time, because in real life you can't necessarily help somebody at that time. You know, Warren with the experiment for science class, you that's a totally optional thing. You could have just given him a like an F or something like that if you failed it. But like depending on what you do, like you can either like get an A or you can get a B, you can get a C. So it's like there's a lot of cool things like that in the game where they expand on minor characters, and I think that's something that lacks in a couple of other games, especially today, where it's like, oh, these people talk about like story arcs of characters. Well, it's great if your main character has a story arc, But Life is Strange has a story arc for everybody. Everybody has a chance to grow, I think. And that's what I really like about it, is that the main character has a great arc, but the side characters still get one, you know?
Absolutely. The interactive storytelling part when you're having conversations and being able to rewind time. So to kind of explain it quickly for everybody, so you have a conversation and you strike out in that conversation. It doesn't go so well because you really don't know what you're picking, and you really don't really honestly know 100% how the conversation's going to go. It's kind of similar to a game that did it really well, LA Noir, where you had conversations and dialogue situations where you really couldn't tell 100% whether or not it was the accurate way to go, but you gained information and insight. Now you're able to rewind time, and then you have that knowledge, and so does Max, of that conversation as in its entirety. You can go back in time so they're affected, but you're not, and you can then use that dialogue option to advance further and get the correct outcome. And even though you think it's going to be correct, the game is still throwing you a curveball on top of that, because this may be a choice that maybe you didn't want to expose, or maybe a dialogue option that you think is the right thing, but later could come back to bite you in the butt. And so that that give and take, that light and dark situation of choosing your story, and the path being kind of, at one point it feels infinite, but it does definitely close off and go down one direction or another depending upon what you choose. And as something as simple as when you first start the game, as watering your plant has an effect in the game. And so naturally, me just kind of role playing as Max, when I woke up, I actually went over and watered the plant, and then the butterfly in the corner warned that this has a consequences, and or like story consequences, and I was like, interesting. And then later on, when Chloe texts me, I see that you got a text message from your mom kind of nagging you about making sure you water your plant. So I just did it ahead of time, not realizing that, oh well, it was going to be a good thing or not. But then the text message was, don't water your plant too much because you're going to kill it. And I think that's what I did. Because every time I'm in that room, I'm watering that plant.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's just like habit, like, you're just kind of upkeep and taking care of everything. And so what I really like about the storytelling also is just the character building is its own world. It's unique. It's very relatable. And it's just this, also this kind of like, it feels almost like sometimes it's alternate universe, sometimes it's alternate, sometimes it's just like, our normal life. And so it kind of varies depending upon what you do. And this episode really hit the feels with a couple of things. The one biggest one for me obviously was Kate on the roof. But
let's wait a little bit on that one. We haven't quite got there yet.
But I'll talk about the first one.
Yeah.
So the diner, you're having the conversation with Chloe's mom, and she's kind of giving you the backstory on, hey, was that really your pot that you basically claimed? And you can lie and say yes or no, and you can kind of take responsibility. But the conversation that her mom's kind of like letting you know that, like, look, it's okay, you guys are good for each other, you guys are good friends, but just keep doing your thing and make sure you look out for her. And the funny thing is, like, Chloe comes in and she's just unaware of everything, it seems. And she continuously is trying to push you after you prove to her what's in her pockets. That was really cool. She wants to know, like, well, if you can rewind time and foretell what's going to happen, what's in my pockets? And so you have to go through that little game. I tell you, I got 3 of the 4 things correct, and I had to keep going back.
Oh, yeah.
But the attention to detail, like the detective work's really fun, really engaging and entertaining. And for me, the part where they go after the diner, they go hang out, and they're like at the scrap yard, and you're going around and collecting bottles, and you're kind of not expecting that you're going to come across this little like hangout where Chloe and her best friend, after she moved away, her best friend she got with, what was her name? Rosie?
Rachel.
Okay.
Rachel
I don't know why I had that name in my head. But with Rachel, and it's kind of like their hangout, and you see kind of like the past that you weren't a part of, which is still kind of near and dear to her, in this little like scrapyard hangout, and you're going around collecting bottles and everything, and then you're the little interactive game with manipulating time over shooting the bottles. The biggest thing for me was like when you shot the bumper and she shoots it, the bullet ricochets and hits her, and I'm like, oh crap, what did I do?
Yeah.
And you're like trying to hurry up and like rewind back to choose the right thing. It's pretty clever, really clever the way they implemented it this time around in the story, not just for like your gain, but to help people, other people. It's like not your benefit this time, it's for other people, and I really like that. I really like that touch. That and the other emotional part for me, I'll let you take that one, was the train tracks. That was like, oh my god.
Mhm.
The where she gets stuck, that was
Yo,
intense for me.
yeah. So one of the cool things about this game is that the choices stack. So, like, depending on what you do in the first
Mhm.
game and the second game, carries over to like the third chapter. And so there is a choice at this point where Chloe gets trapped on the train track as they're talking, and her
Mhm.
foot's stuck. So you have to pull the lever. Now you can run up the hill and destroy this pylon and drop a bunch of stuff onto the brake and pretty much just destroy it. And then the train track's gonna go on to some different track that God knows nowhere, like no one knows where it is, and they end up
Mhm.
crashing. Or you can actually release break open the fuse box and like actually crack it so that Chloe can get out and then put it back. So there's that intensity because you're trying to be like, oh my gosh, what do I have to do here? And the train's coming. You can see it in the distance. You can hear it coming. It's crazy. It's really exhilarating, and it's one of my favorite moments in the game just because those two options. There's in that game, it's not a very it's the objective is obvious, but the way you go about it, you could get halfway through doing the correct or the safe way for everybody, like the people on the train are safe, and then Chloe's safe. You can get halfway through that, but then realize I'm out of time. I have to break it. Like, I have to risk the train crashing. And that's what I really liked about it. What did you end up doing in that situation?
So instinctively I ran over to her, and oh crap, I can't do anything for her. So I run over to the arm to pull it. It won't budge. It says there's no power to it. So I go over to the box, I open it up, and I'm like, well shit, you got to cut one of the three wires. What do you do? So I run up the thing, and I didn't notice the pathway behind you at first, so I failed. And then I rewound and I went back and turned around behind me,
Yeah.
and oh shit, okay. So I go up there, I find the crowbar, I run back down and think, oh okay, I'll just use the crowbar to maybe pry the lever. That didn't work.
Mhm.
So I failed a second time. Then I went back up and realized the crowbar was meant for opening up the door to the like storage space up there up on top of the hill. And then so I pop it open and I dig into the drawers, and all of a sudden my last drawer, it's like you hear the train coming. It's like, oh, you're like really tense and like, hurry up, she's gonna get killed. So I'm like running for the thing, and I'm like, well, which wire do I cut? Boom, fail that because I cut the yellow wire, then the green wire. So I failed like four times. I had to go back and cut the red wire, which worked, and then pull the lever, which unlocked the lever to pull it to get the train to turn off on the other track, or to let go of her foot. So it was very intense, and it was very much like, wow, that could have had definitely lasting consequences, but it wasn't a permanent one because it wants Chloe to kind of live so you can continue the story in a way.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was interesting. But yeah, I thought one of three things: either going to derail the train, kill all the people, but save your friend, or your friend's going to die, save all the people, or they all die. So it's like, oh
Yeah.
boy, what do you do? That was really intense for me, trying to beat that train as it's coming, and you're trying to hurry up and save your friend. And that was an unexpected pacing
Mhm.
at that moment. Like it had just settled down, and then it ramped up, and it's like, whoa. But
Yeah,
yeah, it
because
was really, really, really well done.
before that Frank showed up. Am I correct? That's right before Frank shows up? Uh,
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, I think that's right after you have the thing where you pull the gun, if I can remember correctly. You have the option to pull the gun, and
yeah. So
yeah,
Frank,
it is.
so we got to rewind a little bit here. Um, so in the junkyard, Frank pulls up because Chloe owes Frank money,
Mhm.
and uh, Frank ends up like pointing at Max or something, and then Chloe sees Rachel Amber's bracelet on Frank. And she's like, "Where'd you get Rachel's bracelet?" And he's like, "Whoa, calm down, calm down." And then like she's getting crazy and like all up in his face, trying to figure out why he's got Rachel Amber's bracelet. And Frank pulls a knife out, you know, in like self-defense sort of thing. Well, then Max pulls out the gun that they were just playing with and points it at Frank, you know, and you have the choice to shoot him or not shoot him in this situation. What did you choose?
Oh, I choose to pull the trigger right away. I didn't even think about it. I'm just like, shoot him.
I didn't pull the trigger.
Oh, okay.
And he does the same thing. He just snatches it from you. Or no, he snatched it from me. He comes over and he's like, "Give me that." He's like, "Stop playing with toys." And I'm like, "What?" And then we lost the gun. And then Max is like, or Chloe's like, "Oh, we lost our gun. Well, now I'm mad. Let's go walk off on the train track to blow off steam."
It's kind of the same thing when you pull the trigger, it clicks and nothing happens because you ran out of ammunition. And he's like, "Oh, I'll remember this. I'll remember that you tried to shoot me. Next time, bring more bullets." And then he turns and he tells her like, "Don't forget about the money you owe me." And then he walks off.
Mhm.
And then you kind of have the dialogue option to ask and probe why do you owe him money, and and then the backstory leads into that walk on the train tracks. So yeah.
The thing is with Life is Strange is that there's so many events that lead up to each other, and sometimes we get a little out of order because we're not playing the game right now. We unfortunately, but Frank's a good character, like his dog Pomaduke, something like that. I forget what the hell its name is. Great dog, and he's a good character. He gives you a good. He's like the antagonist, but like, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? Is he just misunderstood? And that's the nice thing about his character is, I think if someone pulled a gun on me and pulled the trigger and it clicked, I'd be kind of upset too. Or if someone's coming at me, I mean, I'd pull a knife on them too.
Yeah.
That's the thing. His in the diner, don't you have to ask him about the extracurricular activities, or is that not this episode?
Definitely not this episode.
Okay.
No, see, that's the beauty because I can kind of ground you and keep you within this episode because I don't know anything else. That's
good. I didn't want to spoil too much.
No,
that's
okay.
I think that's a later episode. But no, so yeah, the train tracks continue, and so Max and Chloe, they're reconnecting, they're rekindling their friendship, and Max got a bloody nose. Am I correct? Right after the train incident.
Both at the diner after the several attempts at guessing what's in her pockets to basically proving your powers to her. And it's kind of funny because it contrasts then and then it happens then and it happens after the train incident as well. But she actually like passes out after the thing with after the confrontation with him where she pulls the trigger. She actually like blacks out and then she wakes up sometime later.
Oh.
So it's like it just everything happens so quickly, and using this power you can tell, which is the cooler part of the storytelling that's not really spoken of, is that Chloe keeps pushing you to have fun and let loose and test your powers and just go crazy. You're not gonna just use it while you have it still. And Max is trying to tell her, look, I'm not gonna have this forever, and it's kind of insinuating that every time you do this it hurts physically and it's taking its toll on her, and then it leaves her with a bloody nose after every strong session of having to rewind time and use this power, this ability. And so it's like her friend kind of gets it, but it doesn't seem like she really cares about her well-being as much as she's just not taking it seriously is what I think it is. And it's definitely pulling in a direction where is this ability going to run out? And that actually came to fruition at the last part of the story at the end there. Which was caught me off guard completely. And thankfully I ended on the what I feel is the correct side of that situation just by simply guessing. But yeah, the moral of the story really is unclear. What's more clear is that there's definitely choices and paths you can take, and something as simple as talking to someone, having a positive interaction, and then having the opportunity to take a selfie or take a photo with that person and enjoy that moment and have that go up into your album is really, really unique and really cool. And like when what's her friend's name, the dude who wanted to go see Planet of the Apes thing?
Warren.
Warren, yeah, okay. So I don't know why I keep forgetting his name, but
He's a
Warren,
weenie, that's why.
Yeah, he seems like a really good kid, and he's just who's kind of sweet on you, and he wants to just kind of hook up, but he's going about it his own subtle way, I guess you could say. And just the story between the two and him kind of being there when she needs support is really interesting. And then in the school, when he's doing a science experiment and he's mixing some chemicals together, he's choosing whether to not to add potassium and sodium, and it's actually, if you talk to the teacher, you find out she actually needs to add chlorine to it to make the proper element, which to make it a successful experiment. Having the ability to talk and then share like a cute moment where she takes a photo of him and he's like holding up his little thing and he's like really happy and he's giving her the peace sign. That's really interesting to have that dynamic storytelling where you're making little memories along the way, memorable moments, and you're capturing them in time, which is what brings the photography element to it, which makes it so interesting.
Yeah, I really like the photography element of it because everywhere you go, there's photography opportunities. Like you can take pictures of like engravings and walls and stuff like that, or like a corner of like Chloe's clubhouse sort of thing like that. And it just kind of comes down to what do you do when you're in this like almost rural city. What is there to do? It's like almost like a Seattle. Like it's very artistic looking, but yet it's not the city. Like, and you're a photographer, so you're gonna photograph what you can find. And there's like a part where like there's an abandoned school bus that's like in the scrapyard. There's a bunch of stuff like that you can find, and I think the fact that they don't let you just take a billion pictures is nice, because then it really, like, they've already got predetermined sets where like that picture's supposed to be taken. It's a really good trophy to find. I really like it a lot for that reason, is that like in video games when they give you photo mode, I don't go around taking photos. But in this, there's like 10 photos each episode. I'm trying to find those photos. I'm every time, because those are pictures that are something that someone want to take in real life, maybe, or there's an objective behind taking those 10 pictures just to explore the world and experience it. It's kind of like a Easter egg hunt in a way, trying to find those photos, and I like it a lot. The thing that I will say that Life is Strange did really well was changing set pieces. They do a really good job of transitioning. It's not like some sort of like sci-fi show where all of a sudden the bottom left corner it's like saying like we're on Mars, blah, 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 year 2000, blah, 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 and then it like just randomly skips to it. They do a really good job finding one way to tie you to the scrapyard, to tie you to the train tracks, to tie you back to the school, to take you from the school to the diner. Like they do a really good job of implementing, you traveling, especially when like you're riding the bus and stuff like that. Did you go behind the diner and talk to anybody?
I talked to a couple of people outside, but no, I talked to the people waiting along the fence line when you first get there off the bus. But after that, I just went straight, like just pushed straight on past. But I do get the sense that like when after the diner's almost completed and you go to walk out before you leave, you can talk to all the patrons inside the diner and get a different story. And so you can talk to the officer, and he kind of like, his partner took off and he's there by himself and he's just finishing up his breakfast, but he gives you some backstory into Chloe's family, I think, and his her stepfather, who's you're kind of sketchy about at this point. And the dialogue where everybody's kind of like, either you got the crazy lady in the corner of the diner who's just really weird and like high strung, and then you've got the kid who like, I didn't catch any fish, leave me alone, let me mourn and eat my eggs, and then you've got the contrast of the trucker and just everybody all together. But yeah, I didn't talk to anybody like behind or after that. I just kind of like wanted to push forward and get through the story.
Mm. Yeah, because there's like a couple people at that diner. Like you'll see reoccurring vehicles. Like in the first episode, there's like a really dirty van, and you say "Wash me" on it. If you look in the
Mm,
parking lot, you'll find it. So there's little cool things like that that they implement very well into their set pieces. Is they're like
mm-hmm,
the population of Arcadia Bay is kind of small. It's like a couple thousand people.
mm-hmm,
So the fact that like everybody realistically can coexist in this world, and you'll see people in one location, you'll see people in another location, is really nice.
mm-hmm,
And I really like that because there's like a woman who sits in the back of the diner by the fence, and you talk to this woman, and you just get an idea of Arcadia Bay a little bit. You get a little bit of the history of it, and she just tells you about it. And it's just it's talking to those people that really make the set piece alive, and then
mm-hmm,
transitioning to it is so real that you can continue uh, that world continues to grow in such a way. It's very similar to like the newer Assassin's Creed games. The newer Assassin's Creed games being open world, um, they let you experience it, and you can walk to other cities. Like Assassin's Creed 2, for instance, you can walk
mm-hmm,
from one city to the next city, and you can explore, and you have a good grand old time. In Assassin's Creed 1, it was like that sci-fi, like we're gonna take you here, drop you here, that's the city. We're gonna take you here, drop you here, that's the city. They're
mm-hmm,
two separate experiences. Whereas in Life is Strange, because you have that travel in between, and they have a great transition between set pieces, the worlds feel tied together without giving you that open world experience. But you look at it from a this world is Arcadia Bay. It's Arcadia Bay, and I get to explore it without that open world experience. I think they did a really good job of having a closed world experience, but making it feel lived in. You know?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like a very little cute, quaint, quiet hometown atmosphere in Seattle in like the Northwest, and everyone kind of knows each other, or everybody kind of serves the community with their own function in a way, and it's like it's really interesting. The one takeaway that was very intriguing was since you did mention Frank, but you went a little bit ahead to the next episode on his dog. But in this episode, at the end, when it rolls the credits, there's he's sitting on the shoreline with a hat on. Now, at first, I thought this was the same creeper that they showed earlier, who's like taking pictures. Who you see him from behind, and he's got a baseball cap on, but it's not him. I think it's made to make you think it's him,
Mhm.
but it's not. And that little touching piece where he's sitting on the beach with his dog, and so you see him from being like a jerk, and he leaves, and then it wraps up with him sitting on the beach with his dog, and he's just enjoying the waves coming in, and that's very that speaks to the contrast and the excitement in the story, because you really don't know. You really don't really, almost like you don't want to take everything on first impression, because it could flip it, end over end, and then surprise you, and that's what it ends up doing for me. The biggest surprise for me was the wrap up of the episode, the final engagement, if you will,
Mhm.
where you're at the school, and you're in your photography class, and it's kind of going into the same old shit, where you've got Victoria and Nathan, who are king and queen douchebags of the school.
Mhm.
And despite you being nice to both of them, and despite their treatment of you, you just have to kind of grin and bear it, because they're in the same class with you. And
Mhm.
then you have the that same creeper van you were talking about, that kind of rolls through the environment, and then you see Chloe's stepfather David kind of like taking pictures of a Kate walking away, and then I think it's Kate, and then you
Mhm.
see, and all hell breaks loose, and someone's like, there's some drama going on in the girls' dorm, and then all of a sudden you rush outside, and you see Kate, standing up on the rooftop, and it's like, holy crap. But the biggest takeaway, the best part of that for me, not talking the emotional gushy stuff, but the cinematic thing where she's actually doesn't rewind time, but she stops time. Like, she's actually, Max is like fighting this, and it's like, it feels like it's almost like it's taking its toll. It's gonna kill her,
Mhm.
and she's fighting it to stop time, to prevent her from jumping off the roof. And that transcending of, okay, I can no longer back up time. It's broken. I'm stuck in this moment. What do I do? And you have like a 10-minute conversation with her to talk her down off the ledge. That was like, I wasn't expecting it. It took the story in a whole big, like, new, serious, like, deep, deep hearted, deep thinking direction. And it made you think about the logical part of the conversation. But I, you could easily have made the wrong choice and had her just still jump. And to me, I actually got super lucky, and I was able to talk her down by just happenstance, because I couldn't remember some of the stuff that she had spoken to earlier, as being a good friend. So I kind of just bullshit my way through, and I got lucky. But had I not, it's got everlasting consequences for sure, because you can't stop it. It's gonna happen regardless, and all you can do is just use your human abilities to just reach that person. And that's something that I think we've all either faced or seen happen or dealt with. And I know for the younger crowd that definitely hits home hard, and I know for me, through things in my personal life, that really hit hard, and it was really emotional, a definitely emotional roller coaster that I was not expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be boring, but to be just straight, like, legit, it was really well done. I mean,
Yeah.
it was emotional. It took you there, but it was so well done, and it was done in a very respectful way, and it was also very, very well written. The dialogue options, the facial animations. It's like they really put their bread and butter all into that episode, into the final moments, give or take. And I'm just glad that I was able to talk her down out of it. What did you do, and how did your outcome go?
Well, one of the things that I really liked about it, touching on your like artistic side of it, what I
Yeah.
really found was fascinating is that when you're freezing time, if you look at Victoria and the other people in your class, you can see them individually experiencing different scenarios. And if you look at Nathan Prescott, he just kind of stands there so shocked, um, almost like, how did we get to this point? Like that's what his face looked like. He looks genuinely confused in that moment. And for me, that was those subtle little details where it's like, Victoria obviously looks concerned, but like she obviously knows, like, oh yeah, I bullied Kate. Whereas Nathan Prescott, somebody who is a jerk, but hasn't really done anything to Kate, is going, what is going on? Like, he's confused. And you can
Mm-hmm.
just tell it in this frozen piece of time, just how they set up the character models, where they place them, how they're looking. It's and the craziest part is Chloe's dad. Oh, what the heck's his name? David? Is that his
Mm-hmm.
name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's running.
Yeah.
He's running to get upstairs. He's frozen in time. He's trying to run upstairs because that's his job, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't want anyone to die. Um,
Not on his watch. Head of security.
yeah, head of security, man. At Blackwell, head of security at Blackwell. But that's that for me was the big thing, and the rain. It was raining,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a rainy day, and all of a sudden the rain just stops.
Mm-hmm.
And that's time's frozen in that moment, and that was very, for me, I was just like, oh, that's awesome. It's like you're like Quicksilver almost.
Yeah.
And I knew going into it, because I explored everything in the game. I knew there were certain things that Kate would, like her family, how that was important to her. Um, but like if you mention her family, she gets upset. She's like, they don't care about me anymore, and that's the wrong thing to bring up. Surprisingly,
Mm-hmm.
even though she really cares about her younger siblings. And then there's, I'm not religious, so there's like a passage. I believe it's Michael something something something. I believe that's the passage that she liked, but it's her favorite passage, and you mention it, and she's like, "Oh, my favorite passage. How'd you know?" Um, and then Max is like, she's like, "I know you, Kate, and you don't want to do this sort of thing." And she's like, "We care
Mm-hmm.
about you," and that for me, there's there's so many. They tell you pretty much in the game, if you explore the world, how to talk her down, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Because that whole passage situation, You wouldn't have been able to just kind of you guessed it. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you're trying it 4 or 5 different times to get
Yeah.
there, but you can find it right away. So that way, if you're like me, the first time you talk to her is the first time you do it, and you don't get to rewind. I had a buddy who played it, and you can't rewind in that situation if you mess up, and she jumps, you know,
Yeah.
and that dramatically changes how the game is at that point. It's a very real thing because in this moment you don't have superpowers. You're a normal human being in this situation, and you have to
Hmm.
rely on, like you said, your human ability to talk to somebody. And I like that a lot. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire game, because it's so well done. It's not
Hmm.
cliche. It's not cheesy. And the thing is that there are times where when my friend complained about it, he's like, I've talked to her, I've told her 3 things, but she still jumps. And I'm like, because you didn't say the right things, you know. She's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I might come down, but this thing, you know. And then he's like, but I tell her this, and she's like, I might come down, but then she jumps anyways. It's like, that's clearly are not the right choices. So he had to keep on replaying the chapter over and over and over till he could find the right answers.
The whole package was definitely surprising, definitely something I wasn't expecting. And so I refreshed it this morning after about a month and a half after playing it. And so my takeaway is just it's fresh, it's in my mind, I can go back to it, but it's just there's so much stuff that the people have to understand when you play this game, you're not going to get through it all the first playthrough. It's
Hmm.
definitely intended for multiple playthroughs and different dialogue choices, different arcing path types. And to kind of go into it for a second, you when you complete each chapter, it shows you the real world statistics of the world of all the players, what they've decided and what they've chosen, and a percentage. Either
Hmm.
you went this way or that way. And most of the options are two choices. You can go A or B. A couple of them it's A, B, or C. And so you really get to see the percentage of what people chose. I think it's overwhelming that the majority of the people voted to snitch and say that Nathan dosed Kate
Oh wow.
and had
Yeah.
his way with her, and it was like 71% of all gamers like who played it snitched on Nathan, and a very small percentage snitched on and said that it was caused by David like harassing her or something, and then the teacher making her cry, and it's just like it's so off base,
Mm.
but it's definitely funny how like it takes this life event for the principal to drag a little Nathan in there and drag you in there and like have a sit down and get to the truth of it. And you have to I find it interesting how I wasn't able to obtain proof that he dosed her. I just said it because I thought, well, I'm starting to like David now. David's definitely misunderstood.
Hmm.
He cares about the students' safety and security. I don't think he's creeping, taking photos, being weird or anything like that. I think he's taking reconnaissance photos to try to show the school areas that are unsafe, why Blackwell needs security cameras.
Hmm.
So that's my take on that. And then my perspective on the other part of it, which is like the teacher talking to her and she's bawling and crying. I believe that that was something about like an extension on the assignment, and he wouldn't give it to her, but he was following the rules
Hmm.
and trying to be just fair for everyone. And she just kind of became emotional and walked away, and I ran after her. I couldn't console her, it doesn't let you.
Yep.
So I think it's interesting that it only really throws that third option in there, but maybe I missed it or maybe I just didn't look hard enough, but I just went with it, that
Hmm.
guess, to say it was Nathan. And the other thing I guessed on, the only reason I chose Matthew is because I know it was the Bible verse is because I know it wasn't the other one. It was like it was, I forget the name, but it was definitely a different name that didn't register. But I remembered something that she talked about that kind of connected my name, which is why I was given my name in real
Hmm.
life from the Bible. And so that I remembered that connection instantly, and I just threw that out there as a guess to, oh, that's what it was. And I lucked out, and I was able to talk her down. But yeah, it's just a game where you can instantly, literally just make a wrong decision and impact the rest of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and you have an opportunity for the most part to undo that and do it differently if you so choose, or let it ride and do what you want to. And at the end of the game, once you're done with the chapter, each chapter, you can look at the real world stats of the world, but you can also see what your friends have done too. And I think that's a nice touch, because you can see which one of your friends in your friends list has, you've the majority of their choices that they've made as well, to see if you're like-minded or if you thought something different. I really like that perspective. I just wish that more games in today's world and market would adopt that type of storytelling, where it's all choice and there are different outcomes and there's heavy consequences. They need to get back into that. I think the last game with heavy consequences that was an open world adventure game was like the Infamous series back, the first and second one, where it actually impacted your story and it transformed your character. So, but yeah, that was my 2 cents and my perspective on that whole package. As episode 2, the comparison that I had of going into it, what I was expecting, it definitely blew me away for sure. I would definitely recommend playing it 100%.
Mm-hmm. And same thing with like any of the Last of Us game. Not Last of Us. Life is Strange. Recommend playing the entire series, and they just get better and better with each episode. And one of the things that I really like about the second one is that it's kind of like, first one was good because it got your attention. The second one's good because it builds, and then the third one. So at the end of the episode, they show you like a little trailer of like what happens next. Like next time on Life is Strange, and it's at night. They're running through the school. You assume it's Max and Chloe because you see them, and all of a sudden they get caught. And that's where it ends. That's like the little snippet. So you get super excited for episode 3, which obviously is like an adrenaline-filled like nighttime thing at school. Why are they doing that? We don't know. And the nice thing also, I will say this, is every single episode, your consequences carry over. So things that you experience in episode 3, 4, 5, 2 all come from the first episode, because it's so well written that, like, if you notice something in episode 1, you might have to have that conversation in episode 2 to bring it up, or in episode 4. You don't know when that's going to come up, so you gotta remember everything. And where's Rachel? Where's Rachel Amber? Who knows the truth of her? You got to be suspicious of everybody. And hints that you might have had in episode 1 might not be there in episode 2 because you did something in episode 1 that doesn't allow you to see that. And that's the crazy thing about Life is Strange, is that there's so many opportunity for hints and stuff to come in, and sometimes it just doesn't. And I love that about the game, especially having played it multiple times. It's something that it's fun to play every single time. Even though if you know the main story, the fact that you can have a different experience, or you can be preemptive on this decision, it's really fascinating. So if you have played it before, maybe try to go back and re-experience it, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I was thinking of today when I was playing this again for the second time, I intentionally actually made the same choices, just because I didn't want, if I go through an actual second full playthrough, to make the different decisions and to know the outcomes. I like to be surprised, so I kept the element of surprise intact. One of the things I was thinking of was, it must be interesting to have been a gamer who had this episodically at the time, and not the full package like now. It's like that whole anticipation. I think maybe why it kind of went under the radar is because it wasn't very long. The episodes only really take you about 2 hours if you're actually taking your time and going through it and experiencing it correctly, and you're actually actively engaged in it. It doesn't take that long to complete them, and it's really about that storytelling. It feels longer than it actually is. So it feels, when you walk away from it, like you've been playing it for 4 or 5 hours, but you've only been playing it for 2 solid hours. So I'm just kind of curious, as I'm playing it today, I'm thinking to myself, it's kind of like when you binge watch stuff,
Oh yeah.
Like we're binge watching, Jen and I are binge watching Westworld, and it's on HBO Max, and it's like, I wonder what it would have been like to be waiting on that each week with bated breath. But then the games don't come out each week. I mean, I don't remember the specific cycle, but I would assume it would have been months in between.
Yeah, it was like separations of 2 months or something like that. Because I played it
Yeah.
episodically.
Yeah.
It was rough because you were waiting in anticipation because you'd beat it and then you would go back and you'd beat it again. Like, so here's how I did it. So when I first started getting to it, episode 2 had been released and I played episode 1 and I'm like, oh, episode 2 is already out. So I beat episode 1, went back, perfected episode 1, went back, played episode 2, then perfected episode 2, go back, episode 3, so on and so forth. So I was able to perfect it every single time before the next episode came out, which was fantastic. Until episode 4 came out and my one friend got it. And so then I went back and replayed episodes 1 through 4 with him because we played it like right next to each other because he hadn't experienced it. So I had to go back because I killed the plant. I accidentally overwatered it and like died on like episode 4. So I had perfected the entire run except for watering the plant. So I had to go back, and that was the reason I played with him, because I knew the story, I knew what I had to do, and I let him do his decisions, and then I had mine muted, and I would do my own decisions and had the monitor turned. But we would just listen to his game, but I just needed to keep the plant alive so I could have the 100% on it, you know. But that was how I played it. I had the method perfected up till episode 5, and then it was rough. It was really rough, especially with episode 5. Like waiting for that, you're sitting there like, because they drop. You gotta play episode 3 and episode 4, but I don't want to. I'm gonna get you hyped about it. Episode 4 is the biggest like cliffhanger in the world. It's like Mount Everest of cliffhangers. It's just the worst. 4? Yeah, just the worst episode to end on, because you're just like, no, I gotta wait 3 months for this, and then it was worth it. It was worth every second I waited. I will say this, you are right though. Like episodically versus what you're doing now, I think the cohesive experience is nice. And it's also convenient because you know the package is good. Whereas like I'm watching Game of Thrones right now, and I know the ending's bad. So everybody in the world who's got, like, people tell me all the time, like, you won't know my pain, and like, because they go into the last season thinking it's gonna be amazing, and then they're like you won't have that because you know it's bad already. So luckily there are benefits to each. You know, you get to experience it all at once, not have to wait for it. But then I am on the receiving end. I have to wait for it all. So.
Well, this time I think we missed the save point window by about 15 minutes, but let's kick it over to the save point this week.
Hell yeah!
We
got nothing.
No, we actually have some comments.
Oh, we do really?
So I know it's thank you again, Sir Solna, for stepping in and throwing some of his comments in the YouTube video. He actually put 2 in our last video. He was definitely anticipating our return to podcasting regularly, and he was very excited. I think he literally jumped on it right away. But he has 2 comments here. Bear with me. Again, reading. I'll take it away. So he says, Brett with the haircut looking all business-like. I'm just saying,
I think
when you had your hair back, he thought you he thought you had your hair pulled back, and he thought you got a haircut. He said he was just saying he called the exclusive releases coming for Xbox because of the acquisitions they made. He said, you are a Sony fanboy, but just saying, but I think the gimmicks that PlayStation uses are not my ideal, but everyone has a different scale they rate things on. Lots of time to take it all in, and just realize you have time. There's no rush. Just enjoy the experiences. And he said, you're welcome for the Yexen experience. Texit. I think he meant, you're welcome for the Texan experience. What I was speaking to last week about just taking it all in and checking off some Texan bucket list things. He was a part of that for sure. So big shout out to him on that. Yeah. And so his other comment on the same YouTube video, we also got a comment from, I believe it was Suntakage gave us Fire 300s as 300s. Well. So
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Absolutely.
so,
Absolutely.
so the Kage,
And,
we're gonna have to appreciate that love right back to you. We're gonna have to give you some of that love. We'll give you 400s though.
absolutely. We got to up them a little.
I'm glad somebody's keeping track of our YouTube comments. I can't read those, man. When people say that I get a
Oh,
haircut,
that's-
man, like, it hits me
We'll
too
have to
hard.
figure out why.
No,
But yeah, his Sir Solna's second comment on the episode is shopping is okay, but eating is the ideal. Yeah, shopping's fun, but eating is where it's at in Texas. It's all about
okay.
eating, trying new foods. He said, plus it's fun talking with your buddy Matt too, so that makes it fun. Definitely unique in style here, but it makes it a good thing since it's not a ripoff or copy and paste of other podcasts. So again, I was kind of briefly talking about our doing our own thing, and he's just mentioning we have a unique style. It's good because we don't rip off or copy anybody else's style, which is appreciate the love, man.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, thank you for all the comments then on that, guys.
He kind of goes on a little long-winded thing here, but
Oh,
he
really?
says,
Oh my gosh, I gotta see these comments. He's got a long comment today.
Dark Alliance is a great game. Kind of a late save point. Again, we're late again this week. We'll get it ironed out. Don't worry about that. But he said Super Blood Hockey needs another playthrough on there. I'm looking forward to the Aliens game as well. It looks amazing to me as well. I can't wait to play with y'all.
Hell yeah.
So
Super
that
Blood
wraps
Hockey
up
we
the
will play.
comments for this week.
We will play Super Blood Hockey.
Oh,
Yeah, save points I'm getting longer and longer, mainly because here's the reason. Save points, as nice as they are, sometimes me and Matt, we just get a flow going. And it's like, I look at the time and I see, oh, it's 38 minutes in. And Matt's like, let me tell you about when I was a young lad. You know, it was 7 years ago. And I'm like, oh, boy, here we're going to be for another 10 minutes. I don't really want to cut him off at the save point here. You know?
That's funny. Yeah, we'll work on that. I appreciate the feedback. We're late again this week, obviously, but
Oh, we were almost
we'll
about to skip
fine tune
it. I was about to sign out. Here's the funny part. We appreciate all the comments. We appreciate longer comments, and we'll do a better job of trying to get it back into the more of the middle of the podcast. I thought, because Matt's reading this comment off, I'm like, oh, thanks for the comments. He's still got like half a paragraph left to go. I'm like, oh my gosh, how much more of this comment is there? So I feel a little bad for cutting you off there, Matt, but I didn't know that his comments were super long or how many there was. Holy crap.
Appreciate the comments, y'all. Sir Solna and Sutokage. Appreciate your feedback, man.
Hell yeah, dude. That's fantastic. You guys are homies for that. We appreciate that so much. And yeah, Super Blood Hockey, we'll touch it back up. Franchise mode. Don't worry. You guys can watch it on the This Digital podcast whenever Matt decides to start streaming again. Or, you know, did I say the This Digital podcast? I mean the This Digital live stream. Oh my gosh, it's been so long.
Well, we could just make it a live stream one day.
We can make the podcast a live stream. If you guys want a live stream podcast, you guys got to leave a comment down below. Let us know. Who knows? We might do something weird on the podcast for tips. Depending on where we stream our services to, we can take off our shirts.
I was going to say, we might have to, but we might have to be careful because, you know, the landscape of online streaming is changing and people are getting kicked off of services for, you know, silly things. So we might have to be careful, though.
I'm pretty sure if we made a, oh man, was it? No, not Parler. I'm trying to think of something else. Periscope, a Periscope account or something, we'd be fine. I think we could get away with stuff. We'll work out the logistics. We'll talk to the financial department on that and see how that works for us. But yeah, I mean, I think going forward, I think we're gonna get a lot of the kinks nailed out again, because that's the issue with taking a break for such a long time, is that the habits and the production value that you had goes away a little bit with for one, being so busy and stuff like that. And also just being out of practice. So we're going to try to get back into it. Matt this week will hopefully make this just as good as the first Life is Strange episode with some advanced editing techniques.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A lot of pressure on you now. I can give you those sound bits if you need it. But yeah, and hopefully you guys like it. Let us know what you guys like. If you guys like more of this live off the cuff stuff, or if you guys want more like professional stuff. Well, actually, if you want more professional stuff, you ain't gonna get it. Uh, I'm just telling you
We
right
don't-
now.
We don't do this full time for a salary. We just do this in our spare time. We want to one day, of course, make it our job, but just
Yeah.
for now, it's just our pastime.
Yeah, I
And,
think that's a nice thing about a podcast is that everyone has one and everyone has a different design of it, and people can have multiple podcasts with different designs. I think, and this we started going towards more of like a higher production value, like more professional, and we realized it's a lot of work, and now it's just
It
kind of
is,
become
yeah.
more like let's just have natural conversations. Let's cut each other off. Let's, we gotta find the nice meat middle between the two. So. But I don't know. I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying getting back into it. The issue is just getting back into it on a weekly routine.
Yeah, trying to fit it in. Well, you've got school.
Yeah,
And
senior
you're-
year. So
Yeah, you've got a lot going on. I've got a lot going on, which I'm definitely finding more time for this, and definitely finding the time to balance life and work and video games and things in general.
yeah,
And yeah, I've been playing games I never thought I would touch in a million years, and just trying new things, and that's what it's all about. And
yeah.
looking forward to getting into episode 3 here soon and getting this next one out. I don't know if we're gonna do that for the next episode. We may take another break in between for
Mhm.
just the quality topic change for next week, but
Yeah.
we'll give it a shot.
For sure. The I will say this, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have any concerns or comments, just let us know and we'll address it. We'll do our best. But I think that's all the time we have for this week. Have for you guys this week. If you guys would be so kind as to leave a comment, like this video, it helps us with the YouTube algorithm. You guys hear it all the time, but I'm gonna say it because we need to get back on that algorithm, ladies and gentlemen. We need to come back. This is This to Digital revived. Boom.
There you go.
Add explosion sound. Add big graphic editors. Add that. Nothing's gonna happen. There's gonna be no sound effect. There's gonna be nothing. It's just gonna be me moving my arms around. I want like the air horn sound. The beep 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 beep.
Oh, you want some Michael Bay? I'll bring some Michael Bay.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll watch it. I'll watch it next week and figure out what happened. But anyways, from all of us here to Tista Digital, I'm Brett Clark.
And I'm Matt Keaton. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Have a good one. Stay safe.
See you in the next one.